What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and it's time for the PlayStation Portal review. Now, this is a device I've actually been looking forward to, and I know that there's a nice little group of people online, especially on Twitter or X, that despise this thing, and I totally get it. The question of why does this even exist? This is strictly a device to stream your PlayStation 5, and that is all that it does. But for an accessory and for its price point, I think for a lot of PlayStation 5 owners out there who aren't enthusiasts like myself and a lot of you guys watching that maybe buy and use a lot of these other handhelds like the Legion Go or the Ally or the G Cloud or whatever, it might not make sense. Or you like to stream to your phone or your tablet or whatever, which you can do for PlayStation as well. It makes sense. But I actually think there's a group of people out there that might be really interested in this. But it's not really my job to tell you whether or not you should buy this, rather than just give you my opinion on it and you can decide that for yourself. But I am enjoying the device surprisingly for my PS5. It's very streamlined and easy to use. So we're going to do an unboxing and a little bit of a review here. Let's go ahead and get into it and check out the PlayStation Portal. All right, so starting with our unboxing here, we've got our PlayStation Portal, which of course requires the PS5. I wonder how many people aren't going to realize that this holiday season. That would be interesting. But anyways, for streaming your PS5 here, for remote play, your handheld gateway to your PS5 games. So let's go ahead and crack the tape on this thing, and we'll get this pulled out of here and take a look at what we got inside the box. So I get everything cut here, and it's basically a box in a box in another box, which I think is in another box. So we'll go ahead and get this piece out of here. There's a little PlayStation pull tab here that you can get a hold of. Yank this thing out of the main box. And it's actually a decent little job PlayStation has done presenting this. However, I do wish that it had a case of some sort for those who are going to take it out of their house or whatever the case may be. But unfortunately, nothing included case-wise here. Now, under this main piece of cardboard, you will find your USB-C to USB-C wire. No charging brick in here, so you have to supply your own there. And the chargers, like for the Ally and the Legion Go and the Deck, don't work on this. It doesn't like those high wattage chargers, and it doesn't work at all. So you'll need to use something else there. And then underneath here, we just got our regular paper. Now we'll get this thing out of here, and we'll take a look at it. Now you do have a little screen protector on here that shows you where the power button is, connection to their proprietary headset, which is a bit of a pain. This device doesn't have any Bluetooth. And that type of thing here, and then your volume controls there. Pretty simple, streamlined device. You touch power for sleep, touch it to come back on, and you hold it down to turn it on, hold it down to turn it off. So we'll peel this thing off here. It's actually a pretty sleek device. It looks odd, but it's actually light and comfortable and feels pretty much at home, like you're holding your DualSense controller, but of course much wider apart. When it comes to initial setup, you're going to do just a few basic things. You're going to pick your language. You're going to set up your internet connection. Once you're done that, it's going to queue in for a software update, which I went through, and did all of that. It took about 20 minutes or so to do all of the different updates, restarts, and stuff that it wanted to do. And then I was finally able to sign in to my PlayStation Network account. And once I signed into my account, it was ready to go ahead and connect and find my PlayStation 5. You don't need to use that link device pin or anything like that on your console. It works just like the app, their standard app does, where you just log in. So it finds my PS5 and we're ready to get connected, which of course, don't forget, you do need to have rest mode enabled and remote play enabled on your PlayStation 5 ahead of time. So once we get this in and get our initial connection done, it actually works out pretty well. You'll see things are starting to show up here in the settings for our PlayStation. You can change the brightness once it gets done its first initial connection. It's kind of locked out in the beginning for whatever reason. And this all took a little bit longer the first time than what it typically took after that. So initial setup, again, 20, 30 minutes. And then after that, the in and out process is very fast when you turn this thing on. Click X to play and you're in. Now, as far as the device's design, again, like I said, it's a little strange with a broken in half DualSense basically, and an 8-inch screen in between. Some smaller thumbsticks there, which we'll compare to the DualSense as well. But overall, it feels solid. It feels comfortable. It feels light, good to play on, and it feels like it's made pretty good quality. And as far as the grip, well, that's the standard kind of printed on grip that you're used to with like the DualSense, and it fades off to a smooth back when you get away from the grips there. Pretty thin design as far as the tablet piece is concerned. The one thing is those thumbsticks are pretty high up away from the surface of the screen. So sometimes when you got to touch over for your touchpads in your menu, it can be a little bit of a stretch. On the top, you've got your trigger buttons, volume buttons, your 2 up-firing speakers, your connection for your proprietary headset, and your power button here. And then if we go around to the bottom of the device, very simple, we're going to have a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, and then our USB-C charging port on the bottom. Again, it's a very simple setup that they have here. And if we go into our settings, there's not a lot there either. Network, system, display and brightness, and controller. So you have a slide bar, of course, for your brightness, not very many options in there. You're going to have options over in controller for your haptics, so like standard, medium, off, that type of thing, which of course will affect battery life. You're going to have your network area where you can forget networks, set up new networks, airplane mode, and that type of thing in here. And then your system, which is going to be for your system software updates, reset options, language, date, time, and power saving modes. All right, so let's move on here and take a look at the speakers, or rather let you hear the speakers here for just a minute. They're actually quite good on this device, even though that's hard to portray in a YouTube video. They get very loud. I do have to turn them down when I'm playing, and they're not too tinny sounding either. So go ahead and take a listen here. All right, so there you have your speakers, and like I said, they get the job done, they work well. But of course, there's other devices like the Steam Deck that you can also stream your PlayStation 5 on, or your phone, be it Android or iOS, your tablet, be it Android or iOS, a G Cloud, an Ally, a Legion, an INEO, whatever you want to set up. They all do have their own bits of work and caveats to go with them though, and limitations that the PlayStation Portal doesn't really have. On the Ally, you miss swipes, so you can click your touchpad, but you can't do swiping, and there are some connection issues from time to time. Same on my Legion Go. The Steam Deck has full functionality and tends to work the best besides the G Cloud and the Portal, but all in all, a decent enough experience there. And then my favorite being the G Cloud. Besides the PlayStation Portal, I think this device does remote play and cloud gaming the best, especially for PlayStation with the PS Play app, which you do have to pay for, but it always works really, really well. And this was my go-to device for sure for streaming my PS5 before I wound up getting the PlayStation Portal here to review. So a lot of things can do the job, but they all do it a little bit differently and have their own little caveats and setups. Now, for size comparison, you can see here that the PlayStation Portal is actually just a little bit wider than the Steam Deck with the curved out controls, but other than that, very similar, but of course with a much larger screen and much lighter as well. The Ally is a good bit smaller, which we know, and lighter. Its speakers are a bit better as well, but again, it is a little bit of a different experience trying to use PS5 remote play on there, and it isn't fully functional. On G Cloud, we have like a 15-hour battery here, a decent screen as well, very lightweight, and again, one of my favorite cloud or remote play devices for about $300 when you catch it on sale. As far as the DualSense, like I said, it very much feels at home when you're holding the PS Portal. If you love the DualSense, if this is the experience you want and you're not connecting this to a tablet or something, this is a great device to pick up and have that at-home feeling like you're picking up and using the DualSense. Even with the slightly smaller joysticks, which I think are from like the PSVR or something, they work really, really well. They feel comfortable. I've played quite a few hours on this thing and haven't had any kind of fatigue in my hands or issues with that. So all in all, the design works really well. The touchpad is dealt with on screen, so double tap to click, and then you can swipe up, down, left, right, whatever there. It works pretty well. You can do it on the left or right side of the screen. It's not the best thing in the world compared to the actual physical touchpad, but it gets the job done, and I would like to see things like this on some other devices that we could utilize as well besides the Portal, but works out well enough there. Now, I do get the weird random disconnect sometimes that people have talked about, where I just lose connection to the PS5 and then it just comes back. It's only happened 3 or 4 times in a few days, but it did happen. It's probably just something they can straighten out with software. But all in all, so far, this has offered a pretty sleek, streamlined, easy way for someone, especially who isn't very tech savvy or doesn't have any other devices to do so, besides maybe their phone, which personally is not my favorite with the smaller screen and the fact that I just use my phone way too much to be able to game on it. But it's definitely a device that could work really well for a lot of people. As far as using this away from home, absolutely. And we've known this since back in August that they had said this will work on any network as long as you're connected to the internet, sign into your account, and your PlayStation 5 at home is either on or in rest mode. You'll be able to connect to it and play. I was in an area with some of the worst service I could possibly get with my truck's Wi-Fi just to see if it would still connect. And I'm talking horrible, horrible service. I wouldn't have called it playable, but I was still able to connect and get it to work. I eventually drove down the street, tried it somewhere else where I had good service, and it was really good, surprisingly good, what I was able to do with a hotspot on my phone or with the Wi-Fi in my truck. So yes, you can definitely do this away from home. Now, it's going to depend on what kind of games you play and what your home network is like and where you're connecting to your PlayStation from. That's going to affect your experience here of how good the screen looks. Is it adjusting for bad bitrate? Are you getting a good quality image? Are you getting pixelation? Are you getting input lag? There's a lot of things that can really go wrong here when you're talking about a remote setup like this. Now, I have a really good setup down here where I'm at right now with my Wi-Fi connected to my PS5 with Ethernet. And everything works really, really well. But even with that, I wouldn't want to play a game like, say, Call of Duty or a first-person shooter where I would get it all competitive because you are going to have that bit of lag. But certain games are going to lend themselves very well to remote play where you're not going to worry about that little split-second issue that you might have. Spider-Man certainly is no problem for me to play. Turn-based games or God of War or anything that's not truly competitive or too first-person high reaction time works really well. Now, as far as platformers and stuff, same thing. You're going to, depending on your connection and your lag is going to depend on how well all that works out for you. Some people may not really know how well this device is going to work for them until they actually try it, or maybe even replace or tweak their home network to get the best experience. So let's jump over to the TV where we'll be able to see some actual lag or what the input latency is here. I'm just using out-of-the-box experience with nothing tweaked. I have a secondary network in my house for cloud gaming and stuff that's very, very modified for no latency. This is just an out-of-the-box Xfinity router experience with this, so it would mimic more what I think most people would get with 1 gigabit internet. Now I'll go to 240 FPS slow mode here so you can see as I jump with Spider-Man what the difference is going to be. Now I can certainly do a lot to make this better, but again, this is the out-of-box experience, not over on my more expensive network I have for the channel, for cloud gaming and all of that. This is what normal home network experience could be like for a lot of people. So I wanted to show that on here. Same thing over in Call of Duty. So like I said, most games, and this is 240 FPS slow-mo. So it doesn't feel as bad as it looks here most of the time, especially if you're not staring at both screens, breaking it down this way and really trying to see what the input latency is. If you're not staring at your TV and you're just playing this device and you have a good connection, most games feel great. They look really good, and it's a good experience here. But I did want to show that no matter what, I mean, you are going to have some input latency when it comes to, just running different games. And on different days, or depending on what your network is doing, there can be so many different things that cause this experience to vary. And personally, I think the original PS5 has a horrible upload experience when it comes to just its own hardware. For whatever reason, I have 250 megabits per second upload, and my PlayStation never gets anywhere near that. However, my other devices all test really well. So it's interesting. The PlayStation itself, in my opinion, doesn't have the greatest internet connection on its own, but it does get the job done. As far as the screen on this thing too, it is really nice. It's an 8-inch screen. The colors pop. They look really nice. Viewing angles are pretty good. It is a more glossy finish, but yeah, I didn't have any complaints. Depending on your connection again and how pixelated or any issues you may be having is certainly going to affect that. But if you have a really good connection and you're getting that 1080p 60, it looks really, really good. And the screen is big enough to be immersive enough that it's actually enjoyable to play the games on. Anything under 8 inches does start to kind of lose that immersion ability that I think these larger screens like this device or the Legion Go have. And the screen really does make or break for me a lot of times, devices like this. Now, I think advertised battery life was about 7 to 9 hours, and I've seen different reviews varying anywhere from that 5 to 9 hour range, and I've run this thing from 100% down twice, and both times I got about 6 hours. But I do run maxed out screen brightness, 50% or more on the speakers, and I've been really putting the thing through its paces and also running those haptics up there. You can definitely do some things to tweak this and get that 7 to 9 or 8 hours, but I've been averaging around the 6 hour range, which actually is still pretty good for a remote play device like this. And I believe it took me about 2 hours to get a full charge or so. Of course, that could be dependent upon your charging brick and everything as well. I think this charges at 15 watts or so, but I haven't checked in on that. But it definitely doesn't like any of the other higher watt chargers. But anyways, guys, that's a review for the PlayStation Portal. I think this is really going to be for a decent amount of people out there with their PlayStation 5. I know a lot of people see this device as completely pointless, but most of those people probably have a Steam Deck or a G Cloud or both, or another Windows handheld device that they don't mind using, or there's someone that likes to game on their phone, and that's fine. But there's a lot of people out there like me who do not want to game on their phone at all, and who, while these other devices are pretty good, this just offers a little bit better, more dedicated, streamlined experience. Or there's plenty of PS5 owners, I'm sure, that don't have another handheld like a G Cloud, a Steam Deck, or anything. And at the $200 price point, this might be a great way for them to go ahead and jump in and be able to stream their PS5. Hey, that's going to be up for you guys to decide how worth it is for this device. But I will say, for what it's made to do with remote playing a PlayStation 5, it does what it's supposed to do. It does it well, and it does it very easily to where almost anyone can just jump in, turn this thing on, set it up, and get going, unlike all the other options we have out there for remote play from the PlayStation. All right, guys, thanks a lot for coming to check out the review. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.